Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. The observation deck of the Eidolon Vex was built for science, not beauty. Stark metal beams, reinforced glass and sterile lighting left little room for warmth. But tonight, something in the air felt different, like the calm before a starstorm. Yevena stood near the containment barrier, her form bathed in dim starlight. She wasn't moving, not really, just swaying slightly as if listening to music no one else could hear. Her skin shimmered in subtle ripples of color, soft violets, dusk blues, silver like moonlit water. The Federation's files called her a Class 7 hybrid anomaly, part organic, part unknown, a genetic ghost from a collapsed empire in the Seraph. Belt. But standing there, watching her exhale like someone trying not to cry, Aaron didn't see a threat. He saw someone trying to remember how to be real. He stood at the threshold, fingers twitching at his side. He shouldn't be here. He knew that. Commander Voss had made it clear, no unsanctioned visits, no direct contact, no personal involvement, but her voice had haunted him since the last observation transmission. Just one line, barely audible. "I don't want to forget how to feel." It had unraveled something inside him. His boots clicked softly on the deck, plating as he stepped inside. The door sealed behind him with a whisper of hydraulics. She didn't turn at first, but he knew she sensed him. Her glow changed, dimming slightly, then brightening with a hesitant pulse. "You came back," she said, voice carrying the weight of someone surprised by kindness. "I wasn't supposed to," he replied. She finally turned to face him. Their eyes met. Aaron's heart stuttered. There was sadness in her gaze, but not fear. She had learned to stop fearing humans long ago. What she feared now was hope. "Why risk it?" she asked, stepping forward, arms folded, loosely in front of her. "You gain nothing by speaking with me." "That's not true," he said, taking another step forward. "I've already gained something." "What?" He searched for the right word. "Perspective." She blinked slowly. "You mean pity?" "No," he said quickly. "That's not what I feel." "Then what do you feel?" she asked. "Be honest, Lieutenant. No military filters." He sighed, moving to stand in front of the glass. The invisible containment field hummed gently between them. "I feel like I've been walking through this galaxy with my eyes half shut. And when I see you—" He paused, unsure. "It's like something's waking up." Yevena studied him. "Humans are strange. You see what you want to see." "Maybe," he admitted. "But I think I see you." There was a beat of silence. Then, she said softly, "Tell me what you see." "I see someone who's been alone for too long, someone who never asked for any of this, someone who still believes, even after everything, that maybe she's not meant to be hated." Yevena's expression faltered. She turned away, one hand pressing gently to the containment wall. Her crest lights pulsed slower now, muted. "You say beautiful things, Aaron," she whispered, "but the last person who called me hope strapped me to a lab table the next day." His throat tightened. "That's not who I am." "No," she said, "but it's who they are, and they outnumber you." He hesitated. "Then I'll just have to be louder." Her shoulders shook, not with laughter, but something close. She looked over her shoulder. "You're a foolish man." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm a foolish man who wants to know what your laugh sounds like." That startled her. A genuine smile crept across her face for the first time. It was small, hesitant, like something that had been buried and forgotten. "It's been a long time," she said. "I don't know if I remember how." "Then let's remember together." She stared at him, and something cracked in the stillness. Not the containment field, not the glass, but something else, something invisible and far more fragile. The silence between them softened. "I dreamed last night," she said, stepping closer to the barrier. "It's rare. I saw the sea of my homeworld. It was singing. But the voice was different. I think it was yours." His breath caught. "I wasn't in your dream." "You were," she said. "You just didn't know you were dreaming it too." They stood like that for a long time, not speaking, not moving, just being. The ship thrummed around them, lights flickering overhead, distant engines humming like a heartbeat. Somewhere far away, other officers ran diagnostics, wrote reports, followed protocol. But not here. Not in this quiet pocket of the ship where something ancient and intimate was blooming, slowly, like light through deep water. Why haven't you touched the barrier? Aaron asked softly. Every time I visit, you hesitate. She looked down at her hands. Because the moment I touch it, I'll want to break through it. He placed his palm gently against the invisible wall. So will I. And this time, finally, she did the same. Their hands aligned. Two shapes. From opposite worlds, the energy field pulsed between them, gentle but unyielding. I don't know what this is, he said. Neither do I, she replied. But I don't want it to end. Then it won't. She pressed her forehead to the glass. Don't lie to me. I'm not, he said quietly. But if I have to lie to everyone else and to be here to see you, then I will. Her breath hitched. You're not afraid of what I am? She asked. No, he said. But I'm terrified of what they'll do to you if I'm not here. Yevna's eyes met his, and for the first time in countless rotations, she believed him. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Galactic Nova Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Outside, the stars continued their endless drift. Inside, something miraculous had begun, a hand against glass, a name remembered, a connection that neither science nor silence could erase. The next night, the corridor outside the observation deck was dimmer than usual. One of the panel lights flickered overhead, casting uncertain shadows along the titanium walls. Aaron waited in the alcove for a full minute before swiping his clearance chip. The door hissed open. Yevna was already there, standing near the viewport, her back arched just slightly, her gaze turned outward into the deep black sea of stars. She didn't turn when he stepped in. Someone's late, she said, but there was no bitterness in her tone, only playfulness, wrapped in something. Soft and rare, someone, he replied, walking slowly toward her. Got questioned twice by the commander today and had to reroute power from hydroponics to keep the security feed looping. She tilted her head just enough for him to see the curve of a smile. You're risking more than you know. I know, he said, but it's worth it. At that, she finally turned to face him. Her eyes, those pale glowing pools, were softer now, less guarded. She looked almost human, not because of her features, but because of how she felt. He stepped closer to the barrier. She mirrored him. They both placed their palms on the same spot, separated by the invisible hum of the containment field. The energy sparkled faintly where their skin aligned. Did you dream again? He asked gently. Yevna nodded. This time you were laughing. You had something in your hand, a small object. A memory stone, he blinked. I don't even know what that is. It holds feelings. You press it to your chest, and it sings your heart back to you. His voice softened. What was it? Singing. She looked at him for a long time. Loneliness, but quieter than before. Aaron couldn't speak for a moment. His throat was tight. I wish I could hold it for you, just to know what your heart sounds like. Her crest flushed. Violet. You already hear it more clearly than anyone. A silence settled between them, but it was the kind that made you breathe slower, not faster. Safe, sacred. Suddenly, her fingers began to move against the barrier, tracing something. A pattern. What are you doing? He asked. Teaching you. A word in my native tongue, she said, her voice low. This is how we write it. He tried to follow her motion. Her hand moved in slow arcs and curves, pausing for a breath between each shape. What does it mean? He asked. She looked up, right into his eyes. It means, the one who sees me and stays. His chest ached. I want to learn more, he said. I want to teach you, she replied, her voice almost a whisper. But I don't know how long they'll let this go on. Aaron leaned in closer, almost forgetting the barrier was there. Then let's not waste a second. Yvonne's fingers lingered against the glass. Then she slowly sat down on the cold floor, legs folded beneath her. She nodded toward him, an invitation. He grinned faintly. "You know I'm too tall for this. And I'm not designed to live in gravity this dense," she replied, raising a brow. "But we make do." With a quiet laugh, he sat across from her, mirroring her posture. The coolness of the floor seeped through his uniform. Somehow, it made everything feel more real. She leaned forward, face close to the field. "I want to ask you something personal. Go ahead. Do you believe in destiny?" He hesitated. "I used to. Not so much anymore." "Why?" "Because life kept proving me wrong." She nodded slowly. "I believed in it too, until I was torn from my world and caged in another." Aaron's hands clenched slightly. "That wasn't destiny, that was cruelty. And yet," she said, tilting her head, "you're here, sitting across from me, learning my language, speaking to me like I'm not broken." "Because you're not," he said firmly. She smiled. "Then maybe destiny just took the long way." Aaron couldn't look away from her. Everything about her defied logic. Her presence, her empathy, the way she made the air feel warmer even in a metal room designed to feel nothing. "Do you ever wish you could—" He stopped himself. "Touch you?" she finished, her voice barely audible. He swallowed hard. "Yes." She leaned in, the barrier humming between them. "Every day." A beat. "Then, I want to show you something," she said. Her hand reached slowly toward the lower corner of the wall, where the field curved into the floor. She pressed 2 fingers against a hidden node. A ripple passed through the field. Not off, but dimmed, thinned, just barely. Aaron stared. "What did you—" "I discovered it 2 cycles ago, a flaw in the power grid during nightly rotation. I didn't tell them." He didn't move. "Is it safe?" "No," she said. "But it's real." Slowly, cautiously, she raised her hand again, and the field let it pass, not all the way through, but enough that her fingers shimmered in open air. She held them there, waiting. Aaron stared, then, breath catching, he raised his own, and for the first time, their fingers touched, just barely. But it was everything. The warmth of her skin was strange, like sunlight through water, not human, but not alien either. Just her. They stayed like that, suspended. "In the moment, I feel you," she whispered. "I see you," he whispered back. And for a few sacred seconds that they weren't soldier and specimen, not barrier and breach. They were 2 souls who had found each other in the cold vastness of space and dared to reach across the divide. The next time he visited, Aaron came with something in his hand, a tiny object, barely the size of a plum seed. Smooth, polished, carved from the inner bark of a meridian tree. He'd traded 3 rations and a favor for it. It wasn't much, but it was his. When he stepped into the chamber, Yvonne was sitting on the floor, her legs folded again, arms draped loosely around her knees. The moment she saw him, her posture softened. "You look tired," she said gently. He dropped to the floor with a quiet groan. "I've been rerouting fuel sensors all day, so no one notices the extra energy drain from our meetings," she smiled. "That sounds like guilt disguised as devotion." "Maybe," he said, offering a tired grin, "but guilt never made me this determined." Her gaze flicked to his hand. "What's that?" He held it up between 2 fingers. "It's a wishing seed." "Wishing?" she asked, tilting her head. "That's not science." "No," he said. "It's something older." He leaned toward the barrier. "Humans used to believe if you made a wish while holding one, the seed would remember it, carry it for you." Her eyes glimmered. "What does this one carry?" He paused, then pressed his forehead lightly to the glass. "You," he said. Yvonne's breath caught in her throat. She reached out slowly, fingers brushing the barrier again. The hum had returned, stronger than before. The gap she'd discovered last time had closed. They couldn't touch tonight, but something passed between them anyway. A feeling. She lowered her voice. "Aaron, why do you keep coming back?" He looked at her, really looked. Because the moment I leave, I start missing you. You don't know what I am, she whispered. I know exactly what you are. Her voice cracked. Then say it. He leaned closer. You're someone who never gave up on feeling, even after everything was taken from you. The words silenced her. No one had ever seen her like that. Aaron placed the wishing seed gently on the floor beside the containment line. Keep it, he said. It's yours now. She stared at it, hesitant. What if it's listening? He smiled. Then maybe it'll finally hear something worth remembering. They sat there, quiet again, just the two of them, and the low hum of the ship around them. Then Yevina said, I've never had a name of my own. Aaron blinked. What do you mean? You're Yevina. That name was assigned to me by the Federation after they catalogued my species pattern sequence. It's not a name, it's a file. He frowned. What would you want to be called? She hesitated. I don't know. There was something vulnerable in her voice now, raw, open. Then let me give you one, Aaron said softly. She looked up. He thought for a moment, then carefully, Leora. She whispered it to herself. Leora. It means light in an old Earth dialect, he said. Not because you shine, but because you survive the dark. Her lips parted slightly. She pressed a hand against the barrier again, voice trembling. Say it again. Leora. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them, something in her had changed. Thank you, she whispered. That's the first gift I've ever chosen to keep. His chest felt too small for the ache inside it. Then she said, Tell me something. About you, Aaron. Something no one else knows, he thought. Then smiled. When I was 13, I tried to build a rocket in my backyard. I was going to fly it to Saturn. She laughed softly. Did it work? No. It exploded halfway through. Ignition, I got grounded for a month. Yevina Leora grinned. You were always reaching for stars that didn't want to be reached. His smile faded slowly. Yeah, I guess I was. She looked at him, serious now. And what if one of those stars reached back? The silence that followed was thick, with meaning, and then the lights dimmed. Automated nighttime cycle. Leora sighed. They'll come for me soon. Not yet, he said. There's time. She leaned forward again, voice almost shaking. Promise me something. Anything. When they take me off this ship, you'll find me again. He didn't hesitate, I swear. Their hands rested on the glass again, aligned but apart. He stayed until the cycle ended, and when he left, he whispered the name he'd given her. So quietly, it vanished into the air. Leora. Days passed in a blur of routine and whispers. The Federation's protocols were suffocating. Aaron could feel their watchful eyes on him every time he passed by the containment field. They suspected something. He could tell. The way the officers would stop talking the moment he entered a room, the way Commander Darek studied him with a coldness that wasn't entirely professional. They knew, but they couldn't prove it, and that was all that kept Aaron from breaking. It was the fourth night after Leora's naming, and the stars outside the observation deck were more brilliant than usual. It was as if the universe itself was holding its breath. He found himself standing in front of the door to the containment chamber again. For a moment, he hesitated, but only for a second. Then he swiped his clearance chip. The door hissed open. Leora was already sitting by the viewport, her profile soft in the glow of distant light. Her hands were folded in her lap, her eyes distant, lost somewhere in the vastness of the universe. She didn't notice him enter at first, but when she did, when her gaze flicked toward him, her whole expression shifted. It was like she knew he was there even before he stepped into view. Her eyes were glowing faintly, brighter than usual, but there was something else there now, something softer, more open. It made Aaron's heart beat a little faster. Aaron, she said, her voice barely a whisper. He smiled, trying to ease the tightness in his chest. I was beginning to think you were avoiding me. Never, she said quickly. I had a lot to think about. He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. I know the feeling. She looked down, tracing her fingers over the floor, the barrier flickering between them. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice small. "What happens when they move? Me. Will you still come?" Aaron swallowed hard. He hated the question, hated the helplessness in her voice. "Leora," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I told you I would find you again." Her eyes searched his face, looking for any sign of doubt, of hesitation. "I'm not leaving you," he said softly. The words hung in the air between them. She leaned toward him, as though the small distance separating them physically might be the only thing standing in the way of everything she was feeling. "I don't know what's coming," she said. "I don't know what they're going to do to me." "They won't touch you," Aaron replied, his voice firm. "I won't let them." She reached her hand out slowly, touching the barrier. He followed her movements, placing his palm where hers lay. For a moment it was like the world had fallen away. Nothing mattered except the two of them. The softness of her touch, the warmth that pulsed between them, the quiet certainty that nothing in the universe could ever make him turn away from her. She lowered her voice, barely a whisper. "I don't want to be alone anymore." "You're not alone," he said, stepping closer to the field, as close as he could. His voice was a promise. "I'm here. I'll always be here." Her eyes welled with emotion, and she tilted her head slightly, almost in disbelief. "You make it sound like a choice." "It is," he said, his breath shaky. "I choose this every day." She blinked back a tear, but it was quickly gone, hidden behind the strength she wore so carefully. "Why? Why me? Why this?" He didn't need to think before answering. The words were there, raw and real. "Because when I'm with you, it feels like I'm finally seeing the world for what it is, and what it could be." Her lips parted in surprise. "I didn't come here to be a hero," he continued. "I came here because something in me recognized something in you, something that I can't walk away from. I don't know how to explain it, but I need to be close to you, Leora." She swallowed as though the weight of his words had just settled onto her chest. "I need you too." And then, for the first time since they'd met, the distance between them seemed smaller. Just for a moment, the air shimmered, and for a heartbeat, they felt the pull of something more than attraction, something deeper. Before either of them could speak again, the lights above them flickered, an urgent pulsing alarm echoing through the corridors. Irene stiffened. "They're coming for you." Leora stood up, her eyes wide. "They've found us." He turned quickly, swiping his wristband, his heart racing. "We have to move now. Now, Leora." The door to the chamber slid open with a harsh clang, and Aaron was at her side in an instant, his hand wrapping around her wrist. "Stay close," he muttered, pulling her toward the back exit. His breath came in quick, shallow gasps, and the weight of what he was about to do settled on him like a physical weight. "I won't let them take you," he said, determination lacing every word. The hallway was a blur of movement as they ran, their footfalls echoing through the quiet ship. The flashing lights above them painted the walls in shades of red and blue, like some kind of twisted warning. But Aaron didn't stop. He couldn't. He'd made a promise, and he was going to keep it. The ship's corridors were empty, eerily silent save for their hurried footsteps. Aaron's grip tightened on Leora's wrist, but he was careful not to hurt her. He could feel the blood rushing in his veins, the cold sweat forming on his brow, but there was only one thing in his mind: get her to safety. "Where are we going?" Leora asked, her voice sharp with urgency. Her feet barely kept pace with his longer strides, but she didn't falter. "To the shuttle bay," he replied, his voice breathless. "I've already set one of the escape pods to launch. If we can get there—" The ship lurched violently, throwing them both off balance. Aaron grabbed the nearest wall, steadying himself just in time to catch her as she stumbled. "They've sealed the exits," she gasped, eyes wide with fear. Aaron's mind raced. They couldn't go back to the containment chamber. They'd be trapped. They had to find another way. "The maintenance tunnels," he said, his voice cutting through. The panic. "They'll never know we're down there." With a swift glance, he pulled her towards a side door that led to the maintenance shafts. As soon as they entered, the door slid shut with a quiet hiss behind them, leaving the chaos of the main corridors in the distance. The tunnels were cramped, narrow and winding, the metal walls reflecting their breathing. The air was damp, the Smell of oil and rust thick in the air. They moved in silence for a few moments, Arin's heart still pounding in his chest. "You're still here," Leora whispered, breaking the silence. "You're still with me." He didn't know how to respond to that. It wasn't just her voice that had softened, but something about the way she said it made his chest tighten. He was supposed to be the one protecting her, but here they were, together in the dark, running from a system that would never understand them. He felt so small, so powerless, but he couldn't let her see that. He squeezed her hand lightly. "I promised you I wouldn't leave." They moved in silence again, Arin constantly glancing over his shoulder, listening for the faintest sound of pursuit, the weight of time pressing down on them, every second feeling like a countdown. Leora's voice broke the stillness again, softer this time, almost as though she was speaking to herself. "I didn't think I'd ever leave the containment field. I thought that was my purpose, to be studied, to be used." Arin stopped, forcing her to stop too. He turned to face her, his eyes intense. "That's not your purpose, Leora. You're more than that. You're alive, you're free, and no one gets to take that from you." Her eyes met his, and in that moment, he saw something flicker, something unspoken, something fragile. "Is that why you're doing this?" she asked, voice small. "Because you think I deserve to be free?" "No," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm doing this because I love you." The words hung in the air between them, a confession, so raw it seemed to shatter everything that had come before. Leora's breath hitched. "You love me?" Arin nodded, his chest tightening. "I don't care about the consequences. I don't care about the Federation or what anyone thinks. I care about you." She stood there, frozen for a moment, her eyes wide as if trying to process everything he had just said. She opened her mouth to speak, but the sound of approaching footsteps cut her off. Arin grabbed her hand again, urgency flooding back into his veins. "We don't have time." They ran, their footsteps echoing against the cold metal. Every turn they took led them deeper into the ship's heart, farther from the security of the upper decks. But they were not alone now. There was something else, something between them that made the chaos and fear seem distant. The tunnels eventually gave way to a narrow ladder leading up to the ventilation shafts. They climbed quickly, but as they reached the top, the familiar sound of the alarms started again, louder now, more insistent. The Federation was closing in. Leora paused just before they emerged. Her grip tightened on the ladder, but her face was calm, too calm. "Arin," she said, her voice soft but clear. "If I don't make it—" He shook his head, pulling her. Don't say that. We're getting out of here together." She didn't argue. Instead, she let him pull her to her feet. The hatch above them opened with a soft hiss, and they climbed out into the ventilation shaft. The escape pod was only a few levels above them, just a few more minutes. But as they climbed, Arin's chest grew heavy. He could feel the weight of the moment, the weight of the promise he'd made to Leora. But what if they didn't make it? What if— No, he whispered to himself, shaking his head. He couldn't think like that. Leora was beside him, her steps silent but steady. "You don't have to say it," she said softly. "I already know." He glanced at her, the deep connection between them more tangible than ever. "I can't lose you," he said. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she gave him a smile that wasn't guarded, wasn't uncertain. "Oh, you won't." But even as she said it, Arin knew the Federation wasn't going to let them go easily. They reached the hatch at the top of the shaft. Arin shoved it open, and they emerged onto the roof of the ship. The pod was in sight. But so was the danger. Federation ships were approaching, and time was running out. The wind howled across the roof of the ship, pulling at their clothes and tossing their hair. The stars were a beautiful cold backdrop to the chaos that was about to unfold. Arin's heart was a drumbeat in his chest as he grabbed Leora's hand, pulling her toward the escape pod. But the Federation ships were closing in fast. The sound of their engines roared in the distance, and the staccato of their pursuit grew louder by the second. Arin glanced over his shoulder. The door to the roof slid open, and several soldiers emerged, their weapons raised. "Move now," Arin shouted, dragging Leora faster. His heart slammed against his ribs as they reached the pod's hatch. He could feel the pressure of time, but he wasn't going to lose her. Not now. He fumbled with the controls, swearing under his breath. Come on, come on. Leora tugged at his sleeve, her voice urgent but steady. Aaron. He snapped his head up to look at her, his breath ragged. Her expression was calm, more peaceful than he'd seen in days. I'm not afraid, she said softly, her eyes locking with his. The words hit him like a wave, carrying with them the weight of everything they had been through. The fear, the doubts, the promises. He hadn't realized how much he needed to hear her say it, needed to know that in this moment she wasn't just running from the Federation, but running with him. I know, he whispered, voice thick with emotion. And neither am I. But before they could climb into the pod, the first Federation ship broke through the atmosphere, its engines screaming as it bore down on them. Aaron pushed her inside, his hand still gripping hers as he slammed the hatch. Shut! The pod lurched to life, and with a violent thrust it shot off into the sky. Aaron held his breath as they ascended, the Federation ship barely a hair's breadth from their tail. He could feel the pressure building in the pod as they broke, through the atmosphere and into space. And then nothing, just the stillness of the stars. They were free. Aaron exhaled shakily, his entire body still tense with adrenaline. He looked over at Leora, who was staring out the viewport, her face illuminated by the distant glow of the stars. The tension between them seemed to dissolve, replaced by something quieter, softer. Leora turned to him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. We made it. Aaron nodded, unable to speak for a moment. The weight of everything they had just done, their escape, their promises, settled in. They were no longer just two people, running from the past. They were free. I think we did, he finally said, his voice rough. But the real journey starts now. She smiled softly, stepping closer to him. She reached out, placing a gentle hand on his arm. The contact was simple but powerful, like a lifeline between them. I don't know what's waiting for us, she said, her voice quiet, almost hesitant. But I know it's worth it. With you. His heart surged at her words. He didn't need to hear anything more. He could feel it, the truth of it, the undeniable bond between them that had only grown stronger. He didn't care what the future held anymore. They had each other. That was all that mattered. He reached for her, his hand cupping her face gently. She closed her eyes at the touch, her breath catching in her throat. He leaned in, and for the first time since they had met, they shared a kiss. It was slow, tender, and full of everything that had been building between them. A love born of danger, trust, and shared sacrifices. When they pulled away, it was as if time itself had paused. The only sound was their breathing, the hum of the pod, and the endless silence of space surrounding them. Leora's voice was soft, barely above a whisper. You really love me, don't you? Aaron smiled, brushing a lock of hair from her face. With everything I am. She leaned into his touch, her hand finding his again. The universe had tried to pull them apart, tried to tear them down, but here they were together against all odds. They stared out the viewport together, the stars infinite and endless. And though the journey ahead was uncertain, there was one thing Aaron knew for sure. No matter what came next, they would face it together. The silence between them was not one of fear, but of something more profound, hope, love, and the quiet. Certainty that they had found something worth fighting for. If this story moved you, share it with someone who loves powerful tales from distant worlds. Don't forget to like and let us know in the comments. What would you have done?